Hey, awesomes. How's it going? Welcome to week 6. This week, we're talking about avoiding plagiarism and MLA style. Before we launch into that, I think the first thing I want to kind of review with you, because I know that we have our Project 1 rhetorical analysis paper due this Sunday. All right, so since that's coming up, I just kind of wanted to review, start off here with a review of our outline, just as a way of friendly reminder and also to encourage you to follow this. It's not a bad thing, okay, to use kind of this as a scaffolding, right? Help you with your structure, organization, what comes first, what comes next, what comes after that, how to kind of put it together. And this is from the Project 1 Rhetorical Analysis Assignment Description Sheet that's on Moodle, but I posted it here for your convenience. And so literally feel like you can follow this, okay? Use these things. I put them here for you. I want you to use them, so don't feel like you're cheating, okay? Or do anything like that, all right? So obviously you start your paper off, all right? So let's go down the rhetorical analysis with this outline. First one, the introduction, right? And I gave you paragraphs on each one of these so that you can feel like you can chunk these things down and know approximately how, quote unquote, long it needs to be. And make sure it also helps you make sure you didn't leave anything out, right? So you can kind of use this as a checklist, right? So if your introduction, right, you introduce the topic, right? You have one paragraph introduction, introduce the topic in the context, all right? The ways the writers attempt to communicate with readers about, let's say, gun violence, if that's, if we use that as our, we're going to use that as our example. State the purpose of your essay. In this essay, I will explore what, right? Exploring the rhetorical appeals, rhetorical situation. And then you want to introduce, foreshadow your evaluative claim, right? So here's kind of your thesis statement, if you will. I argue that the authors either did or did not effectively persuade their audience about X, Y, or Z, or whatever it is, right? And for maybe the following reasons. Maybe you felt ethos, they had the ethos, right? And they had the pathos, or maybe they had, along with the credibility, what made this so credible wasn't just necessarily that they had credibility, but they used excellent, credible sources in their appeal to reason to their audience, right? So that's what made it effective. And as I've stated before, just by way of friendly reminder, remember, you can also argue, right? So your evaluative claim is, I argue that the authors did not persuade their audience effectively. They were not rhetorically effective because the sources that they used were not credible. Their attempts at appeal to emotion fell flat, right? The authors themselves perhaps didn't have the credibility. It was not timely. They're talking about something that is not perhaps very relevant, or a combination of those things, or one or two of those things, okay? So just because you found an article that was really, really cool that you like, all right, that you felt the authors, or it's an interesting topic, or whatever the case is, or you even agree with the topic. Whether you agree or disagree with the topic is immaterial, right? It's different from whether or not they were rhetorically effective. And that's very, very challenging to do, okay? It's challenging for me, so I know it's going to be challenging for you. It's hard to separate ourselves from the topic itself and just think about it rhetorically. What are they doing rhetorically? Think specifically about, through the rhetorical situation, how are ethos, pathos, and logos being used? Are they being used effectively, okay? All right, so that's one paragraph. Then your next paragraph, summary and purpose description, right? This is where in one paragraph you kind of give us a summary of the article. Here's where you will talk, okay, about the topic, and then describe the author's purpose, right? Because if their purpose is to persuade an audience to change their belief, or to maybe their call to action, or their persuasion is to get them to do something, think about something differently, see the world in a different way, whatever that is, that's going to affect how effective they are, right? So if you feel that they did not perform effectively in the rhetorical sphere, right, of ethos, pathos, and logos, then they didn't hit their purpose, right? They missed it, right? They tried, right? Or if you felt they did, then they achieved their purpose, and that was to do what, right? So you would state their purpose. All right, so now we move to the analysis section, and there are 5 total paragraphs here. Okay, your first paragraph is this first bullet point. Identify and describe the main types of claims used in the article or the main types of arguments used in the article. And I use types of claims and arguments, not to say that those are two separate things, because we kind of use them. All right, what's your argument? Right? What are they arguing? Right? The same way of saying what's their claim? Right? We looked at types of arguments. Sometimes they're called claims and subclaims. Okay, arguments and subarguments, et cetera, et cetera. They're synonymous. So one paragraph describing, okay, what is that? Right? We looked at those types of arguments last week. Right? Is it a proposal argument? Rebuttal, argument of definition, and describe how they're doing that. Okay. All right. So that's your first paragraph of the analysis section, or your third paragraph overall. Right. Then in your next paragraph, identify the rhetorical situation, the context of the article. Recall we went through the rhetorical situation 2 weeks ago. So week 4, and we looked at what makes up the rhetorical situation. Right. It can be something that is timely, right? A lot of times when it comes to rhetorical situation, this happened, right? So this author or these authors are responding to it, right? So creating this rhetorical situation, something happened causing this to happen, or there's something is coming up and we need information now, could be part of the rhetorical situation. There was something written and this is in response to it. That could be part of the rhetorical situation. So the rhetorical situation is within a context, right? And is made up of the text itself, right? So it was a written piece. It was in a particular type of publication online, right? So that makes sense. The author maybe is in that field, right? So that's part of the rhetorical situation. There's an audience, okay? There's an author. All these things make up the rhetorical situation. So identify and describe that. Then your next paragraph, what about ethos, right? What was the credibility like? How did the author achieve credibility? Did they achieve credibility? Pathos, they appealed to emotion. What was the emotion? How did they appeal to that emotion? What did they do? What did they say? How did they do it? Okay. And then the same thing with logos, right? So for your 5th paragraph of the analysis section, if you will, how did they appeal to reason, right? How did they appeal to logic and reason, maybe through facts and figures or studies, right? To appeal to that reasoning side of their readers, right? Their audience, okay? And then, of course, finally, right? So so we are now at 7 paragraphs. So your 8th and final paragraph, if you will be to now conclude, right? So you want to wrap up your claim, right? So you've developed, so now that you've said all this stuff, now we want to kind of finish what we started off with at the beginning, right? So we had this evaluative claim, I can speak, right? In your introduction paragraph, I argue that, boom, right? And then we go through these paragraphs here, and now kind of wrap up these persuasive strategies used, right? Now that you've talked about credibility, you've talked about the rhetorical situation, you've talked about their appeal to emotion, you've talked about their appeal to logic or appeal to reason. Now, overall, let's talk a little bit more about why, based on what you've just said, and knowing that you are arguing that they either did or did not effectively, rhetorically persuade their audience or achieve their purpose, more specifically. Tell us about that. Where did they miss? What could they have done, perhaps, right? And then strong essays develop this claim, particular elements of the article's rhetorical situation, right? As I just mentioned, okay, their purpose was to do this. They had an audience. Maybe there was a timing issue. How does that all look in your opinion? And then the final bullet point there is, as an example, you might argue that the article is generally ineffective because it fails to adequately anticipate the needs and expectations of its target audience. So they missed something. They forgot something. There was a gap, right? Totally overlooked something that you see they should have addressed, right? So let's say, since the first one here, let's go back up here. It was, so the writer attempts to communicate with readers about gun violence. Okay. So let's say, at the end here, one of the things that you're going to argue, right, and support your argument as to why they did not effectively rhetorically persuade their audience about whatever it was about gun violence, right? They totally ignored a bunch of research, right? They completely overlooked some serious stuff, right? Maybe some serious data, right? Maybe they completely didn't even consider the victims, or they didn't consider the situation from a standpoint of what was actually going on or what actually took place, right? They didn't read the other stuff. It was very one-sided. It was bias is basically what I'm saying. But why was it bias, right? And so they missed something, right? So the expectation of the target audience for something like that could be and should be, right, that everything is considered, or as many aspects are considered. And whatever you think those are, right? There's not necessarily a wrong answer, right? But if you're reading your article and you're like, this author didn't even mention this, how could they not do that, right? That's a great example of why it could be ineffective to an audience. Okay, all right. And then some of the videos here that I have here for MLA to help us think about MLA. I'll go over those in a little bit more detail, perhaps in a later video. If you haven't experienced MLA yet, use these as a way to kind of help you go. If you're using Google Docs, there's the very first video here is for setting up MLA on Google Docs. If you use Word, Microsoft Word, the next two videos go through and help you not necessarily set up, but give you the details behind how to use it. What is a list of works cited, right? How do you put in-text citations, right, when you're quoting or paraphrasing or referencing something from your article? Okay, so you should have one reference, all right, one works cited for as MLA calls it, right? So your works cited page should have one entry, right? The article, and that's the only thing you should be worried about quoting. You don't need other sources. You shouldn't go looking for other sources. You're just looking at your article based on what they're saying and what they did or did not do based on what you've read. Okay. So I'll go over more in detail. These MLA videos here do a really good job. I don't think I could do much better. Okay. It'd be the same thing, regurgitating the same thing. That's the MLA style and is just what it is. And then to avoid plagiarism, the biggest thing I can tell you about that is anytime you quote or paraphrase or you're referencing whatever article, right? In this case, the article that you're using for your rhetorical analysis, just give attribution, right? Just point to where you got that from, right? If you're saying that the author is saying this, or you're using something that the author said and you're putting in quotation marks, either say so-and-so said, right, your author, or at the end of the statement, put it in parentheses, the article and the page number when it comes to MLA style. And if you want to kind of, if you haven't experienced much with paraphrasing or quoting, because you want to have a good balance of both. You don't want to be only quoting and you don't want to just be paraphrasing. In MLA, we like to kind of do a nice balance of both. There's two really good instructional videos on there. And these are all very, very short, not like this long one I'm doing today. To help you think about that. But if you've got specific questions about MLA style, let me know. I've got a few MLA style videos that I will post later on in the week. But I'm more concerned up here. Okay, we can always work out the MLA stuff. Recall this is a draft, so do your best with the MLA stuff, and then we can address certain issues if we need to from there. All right, so this week, watch the posted videos, right? Not only this one here, right, that you're hopefully watching, and then the supporting videos. Finish your Project 1 rhetorical analysis draft. Get that submitted to Moodle by this Sunday, February 12th. And then you'll be all set. And then we'll turn the corner next week, excuse me, and we'll look at our next project. All right, guys, I hope you have a most wonderful week. Email me if you have any questions or concerns, or you don't understand something about this project in any type of way. Just reach out and let me know. Okay, guys, I wish you all a wonderful week. If there's anything I can do, holler. Until then, stay safe and stay awesome. Bye now.